He's editor-in-chief of Breitbart News and a New York Times best-selling author. And on this podcast, he brings deep research, prescient analysis, and world-class guests. He's Alex Marlow, and this is The Alex Marlow Show.
And welcome to another Alex Marlow Show. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And we may as well get started with a plane crash update, because we're the number one plane crash podcast these days. So those of you, and I know some of you are getting my sense of humor a little bit at the beginning of the show yesterday. If you paid attention, I was speculating that perhaps there were some DEI pilots flying the plane that flipped over, and where they just came in on that super hard landing. They didn't kind of take the nose up a little bit to make that nice sort of graduated. Landing the plane is a real metaphor for certain things in life. Sometimes things got to come down smooth and silky and gradual. You can't just slam it in there like a helicopter. Use that in your day-to-day life. It's one of my favorites. And that did not happen. So I was speculating, obviously, these are not the world's best pilots, and maybe they were hired for DEI reasons. I didn't say it exactly. We still don't know who the pilots are at the time we're recording, but we do know that the plane was operated by something called Endeavor Air, or managed by Endeavor Air. And they were famous for a viral social media video where they bragged about their all-female crews, describing their flights as an unmanned flight. Get it? It's funny. It's tongue-in-cheek. Unmanned. No men's. There's no men's, just women's with a Y. Here's the video. Let me play this for you.
Girls, come on. Leave the saving the world to the men? I don't think so. Live fast, die young, bad girls do it well. Live fast, die young.
Wow.
No, we ain't giving no hope. I ain't Romeo and no hope.
They're dancing because they have an unmanned crew.
Chocolate Barbie waiting on me for
Do you see when I complain about TikTok, it's not just about the Chinese censorship and the Chinese managing of our data and capturing our data and taking advantage of us. A lot of it is that they distract us with this stuff. Like, this is so unimportant to our life that you did a dance at work. It's just, there are people who are pilots, and you can just go to work. You don't have to go to TikTok and make a dance of yourself at work. This is where, when you're in a doom scroll, and I notice this sometimes on my own feed, when I realize I'm just watching a normal guy just, like eat his lunch or do his workout or drive to work, then I realize, oh yeah, like, what am I doing here? I'm not on TikTok, but I'm on Instagram. And if you ever catch yourself watching stuff like that, just know you don't need it, and you're better off stopping and moving on with your life. Let's play some more of this. Wow, they're at a conference now, and it's all women pilots.
You got into Harvard Law?
What, like it's hard?
All right, we get the picture, right? I mean, do we need a palate cleanser? I think we'll do a palate cleanser, Misty.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
Yeah, that's it. Well, you bless the show with the onesie clip quite a bit. So here's my point. I still don't know if the pilot's a woman. I imagine by the fact that we did not know the name of the pilot within the first day or two, considering also there's no one dead. So it's just a matter of whether or not it would be publicly embarrassed. This person's name came out. But so you had to figure some sort of DEI situation. It wasn't some sort of a retired, naval pilot or Air Force pilot. It was going to be something woke. Maybe not. We still don't know. But that was all the speculation. But here's what happens when you start hiring based off of DEI and affirmative action, whatever you want to call it. Then sometimes people who are qualified, who get those jobs, who also happen to have one of those, have some woke points, be it a woman or a minority or a BIPOC or a three-spirit or a furry, like all these people, we don't think that maybe you're the best four-spirit furry pilot. We would just like to think that you're a good pilot. It's sort of irrelevant if you're a furry. So it's the good for you if you're a furry and you can still land jet aircraft. I'm not a furry. I cannot land a jet aircraft. So you've got both of those over me. But it's just one of these things where don't we want to have it so that it looks like at least there's an appearance of a meritocracy? So we don't even have that. We just celebrate diversity and we don't celebrate excellence. And that is a problem. We need to stop doing that. So let's see how this one shakes out. But clearly my suspicions have only increased that's what the latest plane crash was all about. But still, go over to MSNBC, they'll blame Trump. They'll act like it was Trump's problem. So it's a no more, and you got to end the woke stuff because it's key. People are dying. More details, by the way, about these night experimentation flights that were happening in heavily trafficked civilian airspace, where that Black Hawk crash over the Potomac, where all these people died. It's just clearly something that had to do with the Pentagon. And I think that the wokeification of the Pentagon and the fact that they've lost track of their priorities. But what we're hearing there is it was night vision goggles, and it was they call it like a blind flight or something. I don't know the exact terminology. Email me aloha@alexmarlow.com so I can hone that. But it is clearly not prioritizing common sense, safety, excellence. It's about doing things that are fulfilling some agenda that is not rational. It's not rational, and we got to get out of that in a big way. All right. So that's where we begin. Let's go to the big story of the day. And it's something that I'm pretty excited about because I was excited to talk about this anyway going into today. And then it's only escalated since the start of the day, which is what's going on with Ukraine and President Trump. And Zelensky is not dealing with Trump very well. So Trump is now torching Zelensky as a dictator who wants to keep the gravy train going. And a lot of this is a reaction to Zelensky feigning some sort of outrage that he wasn't included in the initial conversations with Russia that we talked about on yesterday's show as the beginning of a potential peace process in the region. And Zelensky did not respond in a strategic or classy way. He was just expressing generic outrage. It's not how you deal with Trump. And so Trump has come out guns a-blazing with multiple statements. J.D. Vance is reinforcing some of the stuff Trump is saying. We'll have all of the individual ones at Breitbart.com in case you care to go through it. My Breitbart Fight Club today is with Oliver Lane, our London bureau chief, who is a truly special individual who tracks the stuff for us at Breitbart. So more detail even there. But I'll give you some of my big picture takeaways. First of all, let me start with this truth bomb, which is what I refer to Trump's true social posts. I call them truth bombs. He puts out, think of it, a modestly successful comedian, Volodymyr Zelensky, talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that couldn't be won, that never had to start, but a war that he, without the U.S. and Trump, will never be able to settle. So interesting. Again, you always got to don't take Trump literally, but take him seriously, as the quote goes. So $350 billion, I didn't know where he got that number. I thought it was like 175 billion. So maybe it's more. Remember, 99 billion thus far has disappeared, which means we don't know if it's in Zelensky's pocket. We don't know if it's in ski resorts in the Alps. We don't know whether or not it ever got allocated because we don't have a government where we have thorough accounting for where our own money goes, because we've normalized that because of the incompetent super state, bureaucratic class, uniparty class that's been leading our country for the last several decades that has allowed for that to be the norm in this country. So I don't know where the 350 comes from, but everything else he's spot on. The war didn't need to start, though, Putin did start it, but it didn't need to start. And without the U.S., it's not going to stop. And Ukraine was never going to win. It was always a matter of could they harm the Russian army enough and stand up for themselves enough that they could prolong the fighting and save dignity and face. Yeah, sure, they did that. Maybe Russia won't end up with new territory in the end, but really at what cost? And that's the thing that where the conversation is going to go, is it needs to move away from what a bad guy Putin is. Okay, he's a bad guy. We all get it. And it needs to move very quickly towards how do we bring this thing to a close. And that's what Trump is doing with his rhetoric. So just think about strategically why Trump is saying this stuff. He's resetting people's minds. A lot of you, particularly in the MSNBC and the CNN audience, are out there and you're very concerned with Putin started this, Putin deserves to get punished. And in a just and fair world, maybe that's the case, but it's not a just and fair world. And really what needs to happen is that resolution needs to be brought right away. And so I'll get into my take on that in a second. Let me read more from Trump. The United States has spent $200 billion more than Europe, and Europe's money is guaranteed, while the United States will get nothing back. Why didn't sleepy Joe Biden demand equalization, in that this war is far more important to Europe than it is to us? So Trump's mad at Europe. Europe is not helping. This is Europe we're talking about. We're talking about Eastern Europe. So, and Europe is not, they're not capable, they're not competent enough to really do much other than to call emergency sessions of their parliaments to complain about Trump. They have no real strategic vision or leadership or capabilities here in this region. All right. He goes on. We have a big, beautiful ocean of separation. On top of this, Zelensky admits that half the money we sent him is missing. He refuses to have elections, is very low in Ukrainian polls, and the only thing he was good at was playing Biden like a fiddle. It's just devastating, and it's so right. I will give more commentary on that momentarily. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he is not going to have a country left. In the meantime, we are successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia, something all admit only Trump and the Trump administration can do. Biden never tried. Europe has failed to bring peace, and Zelensky probably wants to keep the gravy train going. I love Ukraine, but Zelensky has done a terrible job. His country is shattered, and millions have unnecessarily died, and so it continues. I think this is a brilliant statement by Trump. And I want to say something unequivocally for anyone who is not getting this, that Zelensky is a dictator. He is a dictator at this point. And I think of this in terms of a lot of people on the online right who are upset that we still support Israel to the way we do. Israel calls elections. Israel has a free press. In Ukraine, they suspended their elections and they have not rescheduled them because of allegedly wartime. They don't have habeas corpus. That's suspended. They have outlawed a hostile press. So when you have those components and you have a guy in power who is remaining in power and not holding himself to account with elections, that is not a democracy. And the people who are insisting that they are the stewards of democracy in America want to keep this dictator in power in Ukraine. So Zelensky can undo that. He can call an election, he can win. And if he calls an election and he wins, we as a real stewards of democracy in America will likely help him out probably a little bit more than we would have if he doesn't win. But the problem is Zelensky's getting much less popular at home. A lot of people are dying. The war is going on forever. They don't know where the money's going. There's a lot of corruption that's been institutionalized, not getting better, it's getting worse in that country. And they're sick of him. So that's the problem. That's why he's not calling an election, is because he thinks he might lose. But I think he's now, especially after Trump's statement, I think every day he remains in power without calling an election, it becomes less likely he wins when he calls one. So he's not popular. He has suspended all these rules, in particular hosting elections, holding elections. He's a dictator. Bottom line, whether you like him or not, you've got to admit that. So these are messy scenarios here. We're not choosing between great outcomes. We're choosing between imperfect outcomes. A perfect outcome where Russia's military is defeated and Putin is removed from power, and we get a new, brilliant, beautiful, handsome, funnier comedian in charge of Ukraine. All of that is just pie in the sky. It's not real life. So we're going to need to have fresh Ukrainian elections. That's got to be a given. Zelensky's got to allow for free press. And Russia's not going to get dismantled. The best case scenario is we allow Russia, which has lost a million people in this war, that to save face, you're going to have to basically say, I guess, we locked in the Crimea and the Donbass, which a lot of people, I think, on the pro-Ukraine side would like Ukraine to get that territory back that Putin just took during the Obama years, so about 11 years ago. So Putin can go back home, say, we locked that in, that's our victory, and we're moving on. Probably the best we can do. So in the meantime, you get the Washington Post blasting out news alerts. Trump, without evidence, accuses Zelensky of being a dictator without elections, echoing rhetoric from Russia. No, it's rhetoric from anyone with a brain. I just gave you the list. No habeas corpus, no elections, no free press. That is not a democracy. That is a dictatorship. What fundamentally do you want more than that? So Zelensky's not doing a good job. But why is Trump saying he's not doing a good job? He's wasting our money. He's getting unlimited, endless supply of American resources, and we have no accounting of it. He's putting an end to it. It's the whole theme of what Trump is doing thus far at the beginning of his administration. The whole theme of it's what Doge is all about. It's what we learned that Trump is going to fire all the Biden-appointed U.S. attorneys. So we're going back to you do not have a guaranteed job if you're in the U.S. government. You do not have guaranteed foreign aid if you've been getting foreign aid from the U.S. We are not choosing to believe that if you're a political appointee from a prior administration, that you are going to have a good faith effort to do a good job in your role under Trump. Because we're not dumb anymore. We saw how they treat us around the world. They waste our money. We spend it on, $10 million for condoms in Mozambique, and then another $10 million for circumcisions. I was talking to Mrs. Dr. Marlow about this. I was saying, Mrs. Dr. Marlow, why do they need to spend millions on circumcisions in Mozambique? And she pointed out to me that though traditionally it's thought of as good for certain diseases, but the studies, more recent studies have shown maybe perhaps less correlation with circumcisions and lowering of disease. So, and the procedures themselves are not expensive. It's not expensive to do a circumcision. They're very cheap to do. Take a couple of minutes of time from a doctor. So we're spending millions circumcisions around the world. What are we doing? We got to stop. So that's the whole theme. That's the connective tissue. Really interesting email from listener Sky King, who says he's super interested in priority gold, and he should be, because now is perfect time to buy gold. There's a lot of volatility going on. It's going to take a while for Trump to implement all of his policies, and one of the best ways to protect your wealth is with gold, specifically with priority gold. And I told you guys that I'm not going to bring advertisers to the show that I don't fully back and think are doing terrific work. Priority Gold is one of those groups. We worked with them for years at Breitbart before they joined this show. And he asked me, when you give out a number, what does that mean? Freedom at 24999. It's this simple. You take out your phone, you send the text message, type in the word freedom, and the number is 24999. You don't need 7 numbers. You don't need 10 numbers. You don't need a country code. All you need to do is text freedom to 24999, and Priority Gold is going to send you a free wealth preservation guide. It's going to help you shield your savings. And even though Trump is going to be able to reverse a lot of the bad stuff Joe Biden's done, it won't be all of it, and it will not happen overnight. So now is the time to lock in. Let's diversify your wealth. You've got options to do things like gold IRAs, which are really smart to do in terms of tax purposes. And they've got all sorts of information. Once you go over there, you go to PriorityGold.com, and you'll learn so much about why gold is a great place to invest. These guys are good. They help me out a lot. Incredibly communicative people. They want to help you do the smartest things with your money. I genuinely believe that. So you text freedom to 24999. If you can't handle that, go to PriorityGold.com, and then you'll be supporting a couple of good causes. You'll be supporting yourself, and you'll be supporting the show. Can't thank you enough. Check them out. Permanent federal jobs, no more automatic foreign aid. We're not assuming that whatever was normalcy according to the New World Order is the normalcy now. We're not including Ukraine just to in the negotiations just to make them feel good. We're not including feckless Europe and everything. We're going to tell them how things are going to go on. So it's just extreme alpha behavior from Trump, and it's exactly what we need right now. So that's it. That is the start of, I think, massive progress. Trump is on incredible footing here, and him escalating this rhetoric is great news, and it's going to put all the bad guys on defense. Another thing, and I think this was a bit of a called shot by us here on the Marlow Show, as well as the rest of Breitbart as well, but China's fuming about this latest round of talks because they understand that the Chinese diplomatic influence is getting eroded massively under Trump. And Trump is not even saying bad stuff about China yet. He's always complimentary of Xi's leadership prowess. But this, as we outlined in yesterday's show, the new potential for a counter to Belt and Road, I think, could be one of Trump's signature pieces of foreign policy accomplishment. If he is able to somehow pry Russia out of the Sinosphere, out of China's sphere of influence, and get them to be a part of really the Western world again. If Trump could do that, that would be really, I would say, just about the best case scenario. So the Oliver Lane put it to me as the club of Western nations. That would really be the ideal for Russia. So I'm not saying we could do it. It was considered the centerpiece of global communism, but that's in Beijing now. But if we could and Europe won't be happy about it because it offends them on a visceral level. They don't like Russia. They're offended by Russia. But that would really be the ultimate goal. And then to have China operate in more of a vacuum with a lot of these third world places, that's maybe our best case scenario here during Trump's administration. But they don't like the idea that a Ukraine peace that is brokered in Saudi Arabia could be a foreboding sign that Trump is focused on a post-war reorganization of global trade. So no one cares what China has to say about any of this, which is great news for us. So they're starting to put out these statements. We'll cover all those for you at Breitbart News, just so you have a sense of what they're talking about. But there could be, if this goes all according to plan and we're able to forge a peace, then we could also start rehabilitating a trade ecosystem on this planet where it's not just we allow China to advance via Belt and Road unchecked, where they're bringing more and more nations into their sphere of influence. So it could really scale back global communism in a very meaningful way. Rather than just exporting democracy, the key is economic strength. If global trade is realigned with America leading the way, then we could have a lot of countries that get economically more strong, and then they're more tethered to us and tied to us. So it's all stuff we'll explore down the road. This is going to be a years-long process, but I liked checking out China's reaction, and they're very upset about everything, which is great. We read their state-run press all the time, Breitbart. It's one of the things we do. One more international item before I start dialing it in towards American stuff. Brazil is a very dramatic place because it's largely a conservative government, but they've got a left-wing president, this guy Lula da Silva, a socialist, and they've got a left-wing court. So they've got a left-wing court that does the lawfare, very similar stuff to what we see in the United States, but actually at a more grand scale. And they're prosecuting Bolsonaro and others who are aligned with him over a riot that took place on January the 8th that they're framing as an attempted coup. The left-wing party is in disarray, and they're kept together because they have Lula da Silva, the president, who's a socialist, and they had to get him out of jail to run him because they had no one else. And they also have this court system that is a real ballast against any conservatism. Bolsonaro is not a perfect guy. He's gotten suckered into the China sphere. So he cuts deals with China all the time. He also goes on unhinged rants about gays and stuff, which would be very unpalatable to most Americans, even most American conservatives. But Trump seems to love him, and he's definitely a lot closer aligned with what we're all about than any other alternative that they've got there. So now there's a report that he tried to poison Lula, which I have no idea if that's true, but they're going to try to lock him up. They are. That's what they're trying to do. So we actually could be on the brink of having Latin America have a majority right-wing leaders. And Bolsonaro could end up, being the best of all of them, potentially, in terms of how he operates. So, and obviously be a massive improvement over the status quo. And again, if we start playing our cards right and we can pull them out of the China sphere as well, Bolsonaro surviving this sort of legal lawfare against him, becoming president again, and getting close with Trump, who Trump likes him very much, then that's, again, potentially a big geopolitical realignment in the positive sense. So we keep an eye on that at Breitbart News as well, for your benefit. All right, U.S. has finally designated 6 Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations. We knew this was coming. It is official at this point. That allows us all sorts of different opportunities to go after them. Mara Salvatrucha, the MS-13, Tren de Aragua, obvious ones. Cartel del Sinaloa, Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, Cartel Unidos, Cartel del Noreste, Cartel del Golfo, and La Nueva Familia Michoacan. So what is that? That's more than 6. I got 8 there. So, okay. So, anyway, so that's 8. Why did we say 6? I talked to our editors. Who edits this website? Anyway, these are all known for mass killing, clandestine graves, widespread kidnapping, and extortion, arson, torture. Just a small list we've compiled for you at our Breitbart Cartel Chronicles. And now that they're terrorist organizations, it allows us to use more of our sophisticated intelligence. We can use that letters of marque and reprisal to go after them with the pirates. A lot more options available to us now. And we're going to be able to compel the Mexican government to help us out, which a lot of it has been co-opted, particularly at a statewide level by these cartels. and the healing will begin. You lock up the border and you start taking on these cartels, and America is going to become a lot safer place. So migrant border encounters are down 38% from Biden's full month in office. I've said this before. This is the biggest thing in terms of immigration. I want to rein in the chain migrants. I want to rein in the visa overstays. I want to rein in H-1Bs. I want to do the deportations. But this is the number one, because when the encounters drop, it means there's less new people trying to get in. And it means that the Americans who are in securing our border have time to think and breathe, see their families, and have a life. So this is where it all starts, is when we're not having as many encounters. So once the wall gets fully built, and we'll have even fewer, that's good too. But that's the big one for me. There's many good things happening. That's the biggest one. And we got fresh data suggesting that's going very, very well. All right. Domestic stuff. So Trump is trying to pass a big, beautiful bill in Congress. So you guys know I hate big, beautiful bills. I like small bills. I like bills that we're traditionally supposed to have a dozen or more appropriation bills. I always lose track because we never do it. Is it 12? Is it 14? I always forget. But we're supposed to appropriate bills at a much more granular level than we do. And the reason why we have a big, beautiful bill so we can pass all the crap we want to pass at the same time so that we don't actually debate it. That's the point of the big bills, so that we don't really debate them. But the problem with this, when the Democrats have made it so that they only do big, beautiful bills, that it means that when we're in power, it's kind of foolish for us to go back to appropriations bills. So that's the problem with some of this stuff, is that it's a disadvantage to whoever fixes the system. So we like the idea on a gut level, on a philosophical level, of multiple appropriations bills so we can really scrutinize what's in the budgets. But Trump wants to get his agenda through, and he's not going to get 14 different things passed. So he truth bombs. House and Senate are doing a spectacular job of working together as one unified and unbeatable team. However, unlike the Lindsey Graham version of the very important legislation currently being discussed, the House Republican implements my full America First agenda. Everything, not just parts of it. We need both chambers to pass the House budget to kickstart the reconciliation process and move all of our priorities to the concept of one big, beautiful bill. It will, without question, make America great again. Yeah, so again, we'll keep an eye on what are the specific agenda items that he wants, but I think he wants a lot of immigration enforcement and tax cuts, and I think he thinks that he might blow too much political capital if he's trying to get if he tries to do one and not the other, because maybe there's some sort of a media blowback that ends up slowing down the momentum. And I think that's his concern, is that he would be better off getting all of it done all at once, just so we can get more of his agenda through. I understand it, and certainly don't look to me to get in the way of it, but just on a broader principle level, always risky, because that will allow for, if the Democrats ever get power again, to do the same stuff, and for us to say, how could they pass so much horrible stuff? Well, this is how. So just noteworthy. And again, I think Trump should get what he wants at this point, especially the first 100 days. So, but it's dicey. We're in dicey territory. As always, we will keep you posted at Breitbart News. So Trump did something that is just unbelievable, which is that he did 4 uninterrupted minutes at the podium yesterday, where he went through various types of waste that he's highlighting. This is so important to hear. And when he does it himself, it does break out of the echo chamber a little bit of just conservative media. We're having a good time on the X platform. We're having a good time at Breitbart talking about the waste. When Trump does it himself, it does broaden the audience. So let's play a little bit of this.
Spent, right? Let's go into that for just a second. $520 million for a consultant on the environment. It's called Environmental, Social, and Governance. Investments in Africa and mobilize private sector resources. $520 million. Somebody got $520 million for an environmental. Sounds like an environmental study. I've always been one that paid a lot of money for my environmental studies, but I paid like $50,000, not $520 million. $520 million for ESG. $25 million to promote biodiversity conservation and promote licit livelihoods by developing socially responsible behavior in the country of Colombia. Well, it's nice, $25 million to go into Colombia for something that nobody ever heard of. $40 million to improve the social and economic inclusion of sedentary migrants. $40 million. $42 million for Johns Hopkins, great place, to research and drive social and behavior change in Uganda. $42 million. What about us? What about
us? That's exactly the right question. Behavioral social change in Uganda. Can you believe we allowed for all this to go on until just now? It is embarrassing. We should all be embarrassed. The only thing that gives me any sort of lack of embarrassment is that even Trump missed it the first time around. I'm sure a lot of this stuff is still going on under Trump's first administration, but you can bet the Democrats crammed it all in. And we acted like, I got to tell you, all this stuff with the Biden wasn't the real president and he doesn't know what he's doing. It's that my defiance of that accepted wisdom is aging very well. Obviously, a lot of stuff got done because he loves this stuff. And so everyone acting like he wasn't really the president. Like, well, how did all this stuff get through? How did we pass all of it? All this junk. We're spending all this money to all these left-wing causes around the world.
Social change in our country. $70 million for a center at Purdue to research university-sourced, evidence-based solutions to developmental challenges. I mean, these are massive numbers on things that nobody ever heard about. $10 million for Mozambique voluntary medical male circumcisions. $10 million.
Again, very cheap and increasing evidence that probably we don't need to have as many of those. Hey, I'm pro circumcision for the record, but the science is not as settled as it once was, and they're not expensive. So why are we doing this? It's absolutely ridiculous. All right. So it's all the winning. And now we've got this place where the Democrats are in a position where they're defending all of it, because either they have to acknowledge this is bogus and we want to help Trump fix it, which of course puts him in the catbird seat, and as well as Republicans for the foreseeable future, particularly 2026. Their goal is they want to win in 2026 and then impeach him. So that's what they want to do. And then they can tie up his agenda the way they did with, the Mueller probe. They want to tie up his agenda. That's what they want to do. So they're only going to be able to tie it up if they can win 2026. So they either have to join him in this noble pursuit of cutting fat, or they're going to try to act like it's illegitimate. And acting like it's illegitimate is not going great for them. Here's a Stephen Miller dunking on someone on CNN. They all look kind of the same. MSNBC is the same thing. They've got one look that they go for. So everyone looks like Rachel Maddow at MSNBC. Chris Hayes, Ezra Klein, Steve Kornacki. They all basically look the same. And now everyone sort of looks like, I think it's Breonna Keeler at CNN. I can't tell. If this is, let's see who it is. Come on.
Chief of Staff for Policy, Stephen.
Okay, that one is Breonna Keeler. Okay, all right. And Stephen Miller's out there looking sharp. Always got a great suit on.
Stephen, thank you so much for taking time for us. So who is in charge of Doge?
The President of the United States.
He's the administrator of Doge?
No, the Doge is what was formerly U.S. Digital Services. It's an agency of the federal government that reports into the Executive Office of the President, which reports to the President of the United States.
Okay.
The way that Article 2 works is the President wins an election, and then he appoints staff, including myself, including Mike Waltz, including Susie Wiles,
yes,
including Elon Musk, and those staff report to him.
Okay, well aware. So Elon Musk a week ago answered.
Well aware. She knew any of that. She'd know any of that. She'd know the basics. It's not a requirement for being on CNN. It's not a requirement to know the basics of how the government actually works. So when you're a senior advisor to the president and you've been in that for both administrations, then you do have to know how the government works. So that's the difference between Stephen Miller. I mean, this just reminds me of the Ben Shapiro videos where he just argues with 19-year-olds. But it's the same thing. But this person's not 19. She's 40, and she's been on TV for 10 years.
Answered a question about transparency at Doge. This is how he spoke about Doge.
Well, we actually are trying to be as transparent as possible. In fact, we post our actions to the Doge handle on X and to the Doge website. So all of our actions are maximally transparent.
You hear him there. We post our actions. All of our actions are maximally transparent. Does Elon Musk know he's not in charge of Doge?
Again, the president runs the government, then the president appoints advisors, including.
It's just the parsing of words shows you how desperate they are. That she's taking issue that Musk said our versus just treating President Trump as if he's the only decision maker in a whole administration. You do get to appoint people to do stuff. So I always wonder if this is their original line of questioning or if some smart-ass, overeducated producer is just feeding this in the teleprompter and these idiots just read it and they're not really thinking about it Ron Burgundy style.
Advisors, including Elon, including myself, including all the other staff here at the White House, and then those staff in turn execute the president's commands and directions to all the agencies of the federal government. This is how democracy works, something that we treasure in America. The whole American people go to the ballot box, they elect the president appoints staff, the staff then administer his orders and directives across the whole U.S. government.
Okay, Stephen, I get that, but this is important because we want to talk about who's making the decisions here. There were 300 employees, the National Nuclear Security Administration, you know about this. They were fired. The agency had to rescind those terminations because these were employees who were critical to maintaining the nation's nuclear stockpile. So then who is it making those decisions of which federal employees are terminated?
Well, in that case, the Secretary of Energy would be the one. So what you're describing with the cuts in the Department of Energy, those are directed by the Senate-confirmed Secretary of Energy.
Okay, so that was the Secretary of Energy's mistake.
Well, I wouldn't use the term mistake. I would say that it's pretty standard when you're downsizing government. You make cuts, you assess those cuts, you see who needs to be rehired, who needs to be kept, who needs to be
That's not what happened here, though, Stephen. You know that. They were rescinded. These aren't normal things. These were terminations that were rescinded.
I understand that even a temporary interruption in federal employment is a great crisis and catastrophe for you and for CNN. What the American people see is a government that is finally delivering a promise of accountability under President Trump. You want to have a conversation about transparency. Let me ask you a question. Do you have any idea where the $22 billion that the Department of Health and Human Services provided to illegal aliens under Joe Biden is right now? $22 billion with a B. That's enough to provide a free house to every homeless veteran in America. Where's the $22 billion? I don't know. You don't know. Nobody knows. Joe Biden just spent it, and now it's gone. Transparency begins with having an accounting of where every federal dollar is spent. And God bless President Trump for leading this effort.
Stephen, it seems like the crisis here had to do with the nation's nuclear stockpile. And for these particular federal workers, which I'm not, so this isn't my personal crisis, military members of the Guard and the Reserve. I don't think it's a crisis, and you don't think it's... Well, hold on. I don't think it's a crisis, and you don't think it's a crisis.
So anyway, the point is that he wants us to be celebrating the cuts, and he doesn't get why CNN doesn't like cuts. And this is where they back themselves in this corner that I've brought up quite often. I think it's the right point, is that they either have to choose between accepting that these cuts are good or defending every last stupid cut. And this is where Trump is a genius. He gets him in a checkmate. The elsewhere on CNN, they were talking about Trump remaking the electorate. Let me give you a taste of this.
Donald Trump and the Republican Party has changed the electorate. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look at party identification, Democrats versus Republicans. You go back to 2017, 5 points more of the electorate was Democrats than Republicans. You go to 2021 when Joe Biden was starting out, look at that, 6 points more of the electorate was Democrats than Republicans. But look at what's happened in February of 2025. Look at this. Republicans, there are more Republicans in the electorate than there are Democrats. Republican +2. So Donald Trump and the Republicans have remade the electorate. They've turned some people over from being Democrats or independents to become Republicans. New folks have entered the electorate who are more Republican leaning. And so when you combine that with the fact that
Yeah, so we get it. So we're switching. So in the last 4 years, there's been an 8-point swing towards Republicans. We've never had these numbers, at least in my lifetime. It's very encouraging. It shows we're not just only winning on policy, we're also winning the culture wars. It's much cooler to be, if you're a young, hot person, you don't want to be a Democrat right now. This is new for us. And Trump is doing it. He's making it look so cool. There's a report that he spent a quarter of his time in the first month golfing. He's golfed like 7 times or 9 times, and he's still getting all this done. It's been the most fast-paced month of administration I've ever seen, and he's doing it a quarter of the time on the golf course. And they're reporting this in outlets as if that makes him uncool. No, it makes him much cooler. That he's doing this with half his brain tied behind his back, as Rush Limbaugh would say. So he's got the right people in place. He's got the right ideas. He's got the eye of the tiger. He's got fearless people at his side. He's got clarity of thought, clarity of vision. So it's just totally unstoppable. And people think that what are you going to do to slow him down? You're going to insist on calling it the Gulf of Mexico when it's the Gulf of America now? Trump throwing down big league on the AP. Let me give you a taste of this.
Have happened in the last 3 weeks, and I didn't know about that, but I would say that if they want to use certain phrases like that, and I guess some are okay, but many aren't, but the Associated Press just refuses to go with what the law is and what is taking place. It's called the Gulf of America now. It's not called the Gulf of Mexico any longer. I have the right to do it, just like we have the right to do Mount McKinley, and nobody's even challenging that. But only the essentially, it's primarily the Associated Press, and I don't know what they're doing, but I just say that we're going to keep them out until such time as they agree that it's the Gulf of America. We're very proud of this country, and we want it to be the Gulf of America. Now, the Associated Press, as you know, has been very, very wrong on the election, on Trump and the treatment of Trump, and other things having to do with Trump and Republicans and conservatives. And they're doing us no favors, and I guess I'm not doing them any favors. That's the way life works. But, thank you for the question. Who are you with? Very good question.
I've read the AP. I've read the Associated Press. Every single day I've been in the news business. I would assume that I've read an Associated Press article every day, including weekends, for the last 17 years. They've gotten every major thing wrong. They're very dependable when it comes to a sterile write-up of basic stuff that has happened. But when there's anything remotely political, they get it wrong. They always have. I can't think of an exception to the rule where they've stood out and done something right. And now they're trying to stand out by not allowing Trump to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America, which is easily within his rights. No one's even disputing that's in his rights. So they're just putting their foot down because they don't want to. It's a tantrum. It's a grandstand. This is what they're resorting to. So all of these are tells. The objection to the spending is that people are aware that they're a part of the problem. They're objecting. They're only objecting because they know they're part of the waste. They're part of the abuse. They're part of the overpayment. They're part of the fraud. The AP objecting this is because they want to find footing where they're in their comfort zone, which is as the resistance against Trump. Our President Trump is moving at lightning speed in his first weeks in office with executive orders, new policies, promises kept. It can be hard to keep up until now. Subscribe to the Trump Report. This daily email brings you highlights from the Oval Office right to your inbox 5 days a week. Get all the details on the administration's top actions that day with in-depth analysis. You stay up to date on what President Trump is doing to make America great again. Subscribe to the Trump Report today at SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. That's SalemPodcastNetwork.com/Trump. Get that up-to-the-minute email every single day with Salem. So this is where I feel like the more the agenda gets put into place, the better things are going to look. And these guys are going to have nowhere to turn. They're not going to have any safe harbor. There's no sign of tariff inflation worries in the Atlanta Fed survey. John Carney's written this up for us at Breitbart News. So all the warning that tariffs are going to be a big inflation, we're not seeing any. So let's see how this plays out, see how everything plays out, but we're still in great shape in this country with this agenda right now. A couple other news items I want to bring up. A Christian girls basketball team was forced to compete against transgender player in California. So California is basically acting like Trump is not president. So this positions Gavin Newsom to run against Trump. There's a report that we covered at Breitbart. Everybody saw it at Fox. First Christian girls basketball team to face trans athletes in a playoff, even in defiance of Trump's order. So this is what I'm saying. I feel for these girls who have to compete against this and have to be a part of this performance art, but it's also very helpful in a broader sense when it comes to the United States of America having clarity over what the left stands for. We stand for cutting waste. We stand for calling the cartels terrorist organization. We stand for ending the war between Ukraine and Russia. And what do they stand for? They stand for sending untold billions to the dictator Volodymyr Zelensky. They stand for men beating girls in prep sports. Fine. At least we get clarity. I feel for these girls, but they're so lost. Spike Lee was wearing a jacket at an NBA game with a call for reparations on it. We want our 40 acres and a mule on his jacket. Spike Lee, the director, he's got some good movies, got some not as good, but a fixture in the at NBA games, like sit courtside. All the woke players coming up and dapping him up. That's where you kind of do the half handshake, half hug deal, dapping him up. I got to educate some of you boomers in my audience. What we doing? I try to teach my little kids how to dap me up, and it's always hilarious. But what Lee doesn't get is that we're all cutting now. We're in a cutting type of mode. We're cutting now. We're cutters. We're a cutting country. We're slashing waste. And he's like, yeah, no, but why don't we give woke handouts? We should do that. People, how many generations are we removed from slavery now? 6, 7 generations, maybe more? I bet more even. So if we were ever going to have this conversation about reparations, and we're probably not, but if we ever are, it's not now. We're cutting everything now. We have a massive deficit. The woke moment's over. The DEI stuff is ending. So it's just tone deaf in terms of timing. And that to me is great. I like to see that because it shows, again, they've got nothing. What do they got? NPR, there's a literal headline from NPR I'm reading. As Trump takes over leadership at Kennedy Center, some protest through dance. This is one where, Misty, I've got to get you material earlier in the day so you could put these on the screen for people watching, because people might not think this is real. This is from All Things Considered, which is a podcast, I think, that they do. Government funded until recently. I hope we could follow through. We got to defund NPR. As Trump takes over leadership at the Kennedy Center, some protest through dance. Does it get better than that? What's a better final headline? Yesterday, I think I did the sharks getting ripping off people's hands so they get a selfie. Today, it's the dance protest from NPR. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, I'm leaving some stuff on the cutting room floor, but that's okay. That's fine. It's a packed show. We got Dr. Gorka tomorrow, by the way, so don't miss tomorrow. With all of his newfound power, and it's great because we have a real foreign policy news cycle going on. All right, we got some email, aloha@alexmarlow.com. You can also leave comments on Rumble and YouTube. I read those, appreciate those a lot. Let's see. So this is Sue Gorney from Sedona, Arizona. Alex, your shows are fantastic. I watch both the Alex Marlow Show and YouTube and subscribe to Breitbart Confidential. Thank you. Don't change a thing. I love the interviews with the Breitbart staff, so keep them coming. Some people like Breitbart Confidential even more than this show. That's where I do a deep dive with one of my employees at Breitbart every day, and I do think of it as a companion to the show. So I'm noticing an uptick in subscribers since I talk about it more. So please do that. That's a great way to help us out at Breitbart. So go subscribe, and you get great content. Unfortunately, now you have me thinking about style. I'm probably old enough to be your mother and seen turtlenecks come and go numerous times. Oh, we're on turtlenecks. I'm moving on from the Q-zips. I'll never move on from the Q-zips. I resent those Q-zips. But we're talking turtlenecks now. They look cheap on men under suits, and even worse when celebs throw on a chunky gold necklace. Yes, I don't like that look. Please educate me if I'm wrong, but I don't think turtlenecks have ever looked good. And I just saw Kamala Harris going to Broadway, having a wine Wednesday, and talking about how she's going to fill the vacuums. It's very odd. I played this on yesterday's show, those of you who are not getting the references. Turtlenecks are good for 3 things. Wear them under ski suits, shoveling snow, and under your foul weather gear for yacht racing in the winter. I've lived in California beach cities for 40 years before relocating to Arizona, and needless to say, you don't have to wear them in SoCal. You look great, classy, and serious enough in a button shirt and jacket, or even a nice t-shirt under a sweater or jacket, and leave the quarter zip on the golf course. Lastly, I must say, keep up the good work and never tire of winning. Sue, beautiful. My boomers write better emails. Sorry. It's just a thing. Any of you younger people in the audience, you got to catch up to my boomers in terms of the emails. Beautifully written. Thank you, Sue. And I'm with you on the quarter zips. I'm with you. Jeremy emails Alex, Elon and Trump mentioned the executive orders are not finished just because they're signed. Is there a list of executive orders that have been enacted or modified versus those that are in queue? Trump said something like, the good thing is we have 4 years, where I was hoping for the executive orders to be enacted faster. Love your show, the Breitbart Fight Club. Thank you, and God bless your family. So I'm seeing some of this pop up in terms of chatter that we're going to do we need to be going faster. This is the fastest we've ever gone. And I don't trust me on this. I consider myself an authority on this stuff. I track presidential administrations as close as anyone. We're going super fast. And when I've read emails like this and I've heard some commentary like this and I ask smart people and say, is this true? And everyone says, no, we're going super fast. They're going so fast, I can't keep up with all the winning. So I've actually started on a personal level to diary some of the winning that's going on. I don't know what I'm going to do with it. I don't know. It could be a book one day, but I'm thinking about this, that it's got to be the fastest paced of a start of an administration, and anything that is on your list that we haven't gotten to yet, keep an eye on it. Email me from time to time if we think we're missing it, but I'm still very confident we're moving at a record-breaking pace, and we do have record-breaking executive orders in terms of quantity. All right, last one today will be from Stuart Fleckner. Love your new podcast. Keep up the great work. Thank you. According to Tom Homan, illegal immigration is a crime. That is why the Democrats do the bait and switch with the word undocumented. That's correct. If so, why aren't NGOs and traffic illegal aliens, also criminal organizations, why are they not investigated? That is the exact right question. And that's why I talked about the importance of what Tom Homan is doing with AOC, saying if you're going to aid and abet law-breaking criminal legal aliens in this country, then we're going to look at you for potential criminal referral, investigation, etc. So that is the move, is to treat the people who give safe harbor from our laws, the anti-law and order people who are in our law enforcement or in our government. They need to be held accountable, investigated. And I think that is a welcome addition to, I think, the agenda that I don't think all of us had seen coming, but I applaud it. And this should go for NGOs. They should not get any government funding. And any entity, both foreign and international, that is trafficking in crime needs to be certainly not funded by this government, and we need to be looking at criminal prosecutions for the people who are the main people who are involved with it. It's just bottom line, and I will encourage it on the show. And great email. Thank you for that, Stuart. All right, that'll be today's show. Aloha to alexmarlow.com if you want to correspond with me. Remember Gorka tomorrow, so don't miss that. And please, you know what I'm going to do? Leave me a nice review somewhere. I want to make sure I'm getting those 5-star reviews, leave a comment somewhere. If you really care about the show, if you're listening 15 minutes in, then I know you care about me, and I can't thank you enough, but do me a favor and go leave a review or a comment somewhere. Help me in the algorithm. That means a lot. Thanks a lot. We'll talk to you tomorrow.